Look who's back, ladies!
So, Poker Night is back. Not something I expected to see this year, to be honest, but very glad to see it in the wild again. If you've not bought it, then go buy it, because remasters of abandonware games are in scarce supply, and preservation efforts ought to be rewarded. You all know the drill though, and probably most of you already own it, so let's review this thing. What's the new game like?
Oh, I call your bet, which is clearly just you trying to impress the ladies at home.
There have been some graphical modifications, of course, we're all in agreement here. The game looks amazing and runs way better than it used to. My favourite addition has been motion blur, which I love in games. It gives them a more cinematic yet fluid feel. Strongbad's post-fold chair leap is probably the best example of this in action.
You said it, not me.
And speaking of cinematics, film grain has also been added as an option. It's not too overpowering, but it does add to the cosy, mellow vibe of the game, a feeling which drew me to it all those years ago. Brightness settings have also been added, which apparently weren't in the previous one, which I never noticed, but it's a pretty glaring oversight. In terms of polish, one of the best additions is the revamping of the subtitles. These are colour-coded now, and they have a faint background which makes them so much easier to read and follow. The new models are pretty sweet, but nothing too highbrow. Max's model comes from his own recent remasters, of course. Strongbad has more polygons, which Mr. Vidalectrix probably isn't too happy about. Heavy is basically the same, but he has a new lighting profile, so he fits in a little better. Tycho has probably seen the most change. I mean, I'm on the fence about this one. Look at his eyes. Just like, look at his eyes! It's pretty cool, pretty modern, but I do miss his comic outline, personally. It's much less pronounced here. In terms of actual gameplay, there have been a lot of subtle changes. We'll lead with the least subtle though, which is the ability to change the initial buy-in. This can lead to some low-level wackiness, or tournaments of epic proportions. The lowest buy-in is $1,000, and since the blinds don't change, the games can end pretty quickly. I've already been in many 5-way pre-flop showdowns. The temptation to go all in with an early ace seems to be great for both computer and human players.
Max wins the hand.
Well, that was unpleasant.
The highest buy-in amount is a whopping $200,000, making for an immense $1 million pot. Again, the blinds don't change, so these big money tourneys tend to last a lot longer. A bit too long for my taste.
Can't wait to see me a flippy floppy.
Meanwhile, the computer AI has basically had a complete rework, and now the computer players actually know how to play poker properly. Yes, even Strongbad. One casualty of the original game's quick development cycle was that its poker logic was a little wonky. To address this, the team stripped the poker code down to parts, scrapped the gunk away, and rebuilt it better than new. In the original game, the players often didn't evaluate their entire hand, just the high card. It meant that they made most of their decisions using a fraction of the information available at the table. That's a really bad Texas Hold'em strategy. Now that they evaluate their entire hand, they play much more predictable poker as a baseline. And now that they're capable of being predictable, it feels so much better when they start acting unpredictable. Rules around re-raising were also corrected. The original game allowed re-raising at a lower rate than the rules of Texas Hold'em specify, which means everyone at the table, including the player, was cheating. Now, no one is. It's kind of funny that nobody really mentioned the issue with re-raising. I never even noticed that, although none of us are actually any good at poker, are we?
Do you know the etymology of the word flop?
Nope.
In the early 1600s, it was when the king would take a shit on a peasant. I fold.
And now, inevitably, we must talk about the items. The new items are reissues, which makes them distinct from the unlocks in the original game. The first thing to note is exactly how all these unlocks work. The original items, if you have them, will remain in your inventory, unchanged. The items from the remaster are reissued versions of the unlocks. All of the new unlocks have the word reissued in front of them. Now this means there are 3 separate versions of the Lugomorph in Team Fortress 2. There's the vintage Lugomorph, given to players who purchased Sam & Max Devil's Playhouse on Steam before April 26, 2010. That was a while ago. This clocks in at around $30 on the Steam market, or around £22. There's the regular unique Lugomorph, not tradable or marketable, which is given for beating Max in the original 2010 game. And now there's the reissued Lugomorph, also not tradable or marketable, which will be given for beating Max but in the 2026 remaster. That's a lot of Lugomorphs, that's like so many. The second thing to note is that only one of the items from Poker Night is tradable and marketable, and that's the Dealer's Visor. If you order the game in the first 2 weeks of it being on sale, you'll get the reissued Dealer's Visor. Now, while you still can't generate any more of the original Vices, you can still get yourself a copy of the original 2010 game, so long as you can procure a Steam key. But, has the remaster increased the prices on CD keys, or has it lowered them? Well, it doesn't look like much has changed so far. Poker 1 currently clocks in at around £50 or more, whilst Poker 2 is usually at least double that, going for a bit over £100. So if anything, prices might have gone up a tad. These are all from sketchy vendors as well, so the advice continues to be, family share the old game through a friend instead. But be careful here too. Those on the Steam forums offering to help in return for a TF2 key have no obligation to actually share the game with you, and Valve is not going to come to your aid on that one. And yes, just to be 100% clear, this means you can own 2, or in the Lugamov's case, 3 copies of the same item. Are the reissued items otherwise identical to Poker Knight's original items? Yes. Does this mean you could earn a second set of Poker Knight items if you already won them in the original game 15 years ago? Also yes. Go nuts.
I could use a stiff drink.
What's your poison, nerdmonger?
A gin fizz, depending on the occasion.
Ha! You're a girl, you pledged to a sorority in college, and you learned to make that drink there. Now the big beefer, the morning pukies, the dirty sweat sock, those are the drinks of champions.
How about you, heavy weapons guy? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're a vodka guy.
Peach Bellini, but bubbles can give me headache.
The popular theory seems to be that Poker Knight 2 is unlikely to ever get remastered because the licenses are too difficult to retrieve. Skunk owns Samamax now, so that's easy enough, and Valve allows free mods of their own game on the store. They're the backbone of this whole thing. But everyone else? Let's move through each of them in turn. First of all, Brock Samson. Personally, I would be surprised if Brock's creators, Public and Hammer, themselves said no, were they to be asked, but ultimately Brock is owned by Warner Brothers, and they've done their best to keep Team Venture on ice since they acquired Adult Swim. The exact reasons for this are up for debate, and we won't get into them here, but suffice to say, any sign of a Venture Brothers revival is not something that Warner is likely to be keen on. It's not a show that they're bringing back anytime soon, and as such it's not something they want to hype up. Pretty much radio silence since the film came out. As such, Brock would be a difficult IP to get back. Next up, Claptrap. People often say that Borderlands is the most likely franchise to agree to a return, but I'm not sure that's gonna happen either. There's actually a lot of bad blood between Valve and Gearbox, with Gearbox trying to move away from Steam earlier this decade. Claptrap, being an abhorrent admirer of GLaDOS, became awkward when Borderlands 3 was announced as a timed exclusive on the Epic Games Store, a move that Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford supported to the point of wanting future Borderlands games to stay off Steam indefinitely. Needless to say, the relationship between Valve and Gearbox is not as pleasant as it once was. More pressing issues surround David Eddings, however, who was Claptrap's original voice actor. The TV Tropes page is a tell-all of debacles from over the years. Over half of Poker Knight 2's Harsher in Hindsight section refers to Gearbox in one way or the other. Claptrap saying he's out of here once the movie is out becomes harsher once it came out that he was subject to stunt casting, having neither of his video game voice actors in the movie. He's out of there alright. Claptrap getting hacked by Gearbox to keep him from voicing his dislike towards them is a bit of a funny gag. At least that was the case until years later in 2019, when Claptrap's voice actor David Eddings came forward with stories about abuse and injustices he suffered at the hands of Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox. Max giving Claptrap a wet willy is significantly less funny if you're aware that Claptrap's voice actor claimed Randy Pitchford pulled the same prank on him during a recording session. So yeah, it's not looking good. Reviving this partnership isn't going to send a great signal. Claptrap would look really dated. I think for Valve, this would probably be water under the bridge. Borderlands 4 ended up on Steam after all, so they don't care. But Gearbox won't want to send out the wrong message. It would look a little bit like they want Eddings back, when obviously that is not the case. And I imagine Skunk wouldn't want to wade in on this either, since it could look like they're endorsing Gearbox's horrendous treatment of Eddings. If Gearbox hypothetically did agree to a remaster, it could be under the stipulation that Eddings is recast, which is A, a bit of a logistical headache for Skunk, and B, would mean that 2 of the characters, Claptrap and Ash, are not voiced by their original actors. Which brings us nicely to the question of Mr. Williams. Ash is an interesting one. It's tough to know what the owners of his franchise actually want to do with him. I'm not sure they even know, really. Of course, Bruce Campbell infamously didn't voice Ash in Poker Night 2, which is super jarring. Telltale was told at the time that Bruce didn't want to play Ash again, which obviously turned out to be false. The latest film doesn't actually star him, but recently enough there was a series that did star him. Bruce sometimes seems reluctant to reprise the character, but then just does so anyway? I think the most relevant example of this is when Bruce said in an interview once that Ash doesn't need Fortnite, and then 6 months later, Ash ends up in Fortnite. And then he even got his own fully fledged game down the line about 4 years ago. So Ash Williams is no stranger to video games, which means his license holders might say, yeah, why not? Like, what's the harm in him appearing? We're probably going to make more Evil Dead stuff at some point anyway, but that would inevitably open up a whole can of worms, the main worm being, will Bruce actually play Ash this time? To which the answer is possibly maybe yes, but still most likely no, for whatever reason he doesn't want to disclose. It's also worth mentioning that Telltale's connection to the ultimate rights holder, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, was already tenuous. They only credit one person from MGM in the special thanks section of the game, Julie Loegman, who I believe has since left the company for LucasArts, funnily enough. And we should also remember the context here. This wouldn't be Telltale at the height of their fame asking for these IPs. It's Skunk Carpe Games, the faithful Lazarus of Telltale, which is itself a revival of LucasArts. No offense to Skunk Carpe, who is doing amazing work to keep Sam and Max alive, but I think they're going to struggle to capture the commercial attention of MGM.
I said, do you have any favorite websites, Max? They're gonna cost me $50.
Oh! When I'm on the internet, I can't stay away from www.telltalegames.com/store.
So in the midst of this, your mind may inevitably wander to the question, what has the rest of Telltale been doing in the meantime? Well, not much is the answer. The offshoots of Telltale have been fairly inactive. Skunk Carpe's conservation efforts have been some of the most noteworthy advances. All of the Expanse episodes are out now, but that is about it. The official Telltale, or rather LCG Entertainment in disguise, has allegedly been working on The Wolf Among Us 2 in collaboration with Ad Hoc Studios, who recently released the chart-topping superhero game Dispatch. You can still wishlist The Wolf Among Us 2, but it's not looking like it's going to come out anytime soon. Ad Hoc said they weren't happy with the amount of creative control they had over the project, and it seems as though the studios have had a lot of communication difficulties with each other. It doesn't help that a lot of the core staff at Telltale were laid off in late 2023. The company looks like a dead man walking from the outside, so unfortunately, Wolf 2 might forever be held in limbo. As for Kevin Bruner, he's not a total outcast anymore. He runs Dramatic Labs, which made Star Trek Resurgence about 2 years ago. It's not overly popular, but it is well reviewed. So that's a comeback of sorts. Meanwhile, Skunk Carpe seems to be winning glory and favour with the indie gaming industry, and seem to be doing particularly well out of their ports to other consoles, particularly on the Switch, where Sam and Max are enjoying a fruitful second life. So that's about it, I guess. Oh, there's Happy Giant Games too, if you want to be technical about it. Led by Mike Levine, who worked on the original Hit the Road game back at LucasArts, Happy Giant are responsible for the widely panned VR spin-off title, Sam & Max. This time it's virtual. But there's not much to say here either, since they didn't make any other games after their brief foray into this genre. Except actually, they were developing some more games after that, and actually they were going to make a poker game, and actually they were going to make an AI poker game.
We're being exploited!
Oh, exploitation! Santa Claus subjugated an entire race of elves in Sam & Max Season 2 and 3!
Happy Giant did make a few other mobile titles back in the 2010s. None of them are of note, really, but you'll notice there is a screenshot from a poker game on their website. Don't recognise either of these characters, though. Looks like an offshoot of PokerStars VR to me, so maybe something like that? Something similar? Well, a little digging, and I found that Happy Giant exists now under the umbrella company Mystic Moose, which hosts some ex-LucasArts employees who worked on or were adjacent to Sam & Max. The leader of this group is front and centre, the aforementioned Mike Levine. Some further digging, and it conspires that Mystic Moose was getting into blockchain gaming, releasing a sort of MMO title called Planet Mojo. This game was to be backed by, or in some way used, Mojo Coin, or maybe Mojo tokens. I'm unsure of the exact nomenclature here. You might have seen stuff like this before, obscure companies and Wall Street bets style investors selling random crypto coins you've never heard of with no clear material purpose other than to make money. They raised a whopping $10.5 million from Mojo Coin from a combination of key industry investors and some regular everyday Twitter users. Now this is where things get confusing. Why did they release Mojo Coin? Did it have something to do with their games? Could it be traded? From what I gather, I think the idea was that it would be used as a kind of currency within Planet Mojo. It would allow players to have a real stake of ownership in the game, and whatever other games Mystic Moose would eventually go on to create. To put it simply, we can take that 30% that Apple, Google and Steam would otherwise take, and give it back to the players, and give them real ownership and say in the future of the game. Decentralization shifts the power back to the community and to the players. As developers, we take a very small cut of that to pay ourselves and continue to produce the game and new content. But the majority of the revenue flows into the game's treasury. If you understand these fundamentals of blockchain gaming, it's far from a cash grab. Would it surprise you to hear that Levine also flirts with NFTs for his games in this article? Anyway, a couple months later, Levine's team revealed Agents of Poker, which in some way would use Mojo Coin, and more pertinently, would be the first poker game to use LLMs to write live character dialogue. The banter would be endless, and potentially quite soulless. The main draw for the company ended up being their MMO game Planet Mojo though, and little else was actually published about the poker game. And you can't even play Planet Mojo anymore. Presumably they didn't attract the attention for it that they wanted, so they pulled the plug on it, and then they put all their resources, you know, that 10 and a bit million US dollars that they had lying around, into MovieFlow AI. It is with deep regret that we announce that Planet Mojo is officially sunsetting on July 1st. Thank you to everyone who played, supported, and built with us. As you can see from the comments, people weren't too happy about this. Wild digression there, with only a fractional but still very relevant connection to the actual Poker Night games through a previous working connection to Skunk Carpe. I'm glad we exist in the timeline without this game because it looks like it would have been awful.
I'd have more fun playing a Telltale game. Or should I say, listening to and occasionally clicking on a Telltale game.
Right, let's get back to Poker Night. This is a fun question to explore, but personally, I wouldn't be optimistic. The next logical step for Skunk Carpe is remastering the old Monkey Island games. Most likely we won't see anything from Skunk Carpe until there's some movement on getting the license for those games. Now, there's a lot to talk about here. As owners of LucasArts, Disney is the ultimate rights holder here, although a publishing deal fell to Devolver in 2022 for Return to Monkey Island. It could be tough getting Disney on board for remasters. Disney would want a big cut, and Devolver might prefer first pick on the future of the franchise. But then Winslow is returning to the new Poker Night remaster, so Disney in some ultimate way gave the go-ahead for this, and is at least acutely aware of Skunk Carpe's ambitions. Or maybe they just don't care? That seems unlikely. No legal department would want to fight Disney on even the smallest of things.
Anybody can get lucky, but it takes skill to get lucky like Strongbad.
A lot of the team at Skunk Carpe are not working solely for the company. They have their fingers in other pies as well. Remasters are a lot different to conjuring up whole new games, and so far Skunk Carpe has not indicated that they want to do anything outside of remastering. In interviews, when asked what's next for the company, the main thing they talk about is Monkey Island. That's probably the strongest indicator that you're not going to see much else from them, particularly in the way of original titles. This returns us to the question of what Skunk Carpe is actually for, and what its aims are. Either way, while straightening out logistics and licensing for that, another card game, not necessarily poker, with some different video game characters hardly seems like a bad idea. It's a humble format, and Skunk Carpe has a good reputation with decent connections, so it could get others on board. It could be a bit tired to grab these four again, regardless of what they play. Their banter can only go so far for so long. I'm going to put it out there though, and say I'd like to see Kim Kitsuragi make it to a game of Balatro. I just don't think it's likely to happen anytime soon.
Holy sh**. The average playing time for this game is 1 to 6 hours.
Whatever happens in Skunkarpe's future, their re-release of this game will remain a subtle statement, a kind of commentary on the industry. There is a stark line in the world of modern media, one which the return of Poker demonstrates and demarcates. On the one side, there is the vast chasm of inaccessible licensing which has slipped into the hands of oligarchical conglomerates. Brock is behind Warner, Ash behind MGM, the keys to Monkey Island held ultimately by Disney. Many offshoots of Telltale continue to chase those big-name coattails. Star Trek, Batman, the uncertain legal standing of Bigby Wolf. Besides running after each franchise, some LucasArts alumni have instead gone down the surprising path of crypto rug pulls and AI movies. They are all still hunting down the next big thing, the next high-ticket item that will kickstart a new era for them after the retro highs of LucasArts, beyond the old accolades of Telltale. But they often pursue such efforts fruitlessly, set only to lose ownership of whatever they make a decade from now, churning out soulless pastiches of a time gone by, while never paying recompense to those they harmed on the way. But on our side, Skunkarpe represents a more humble and classic corner of gaming, one which we fear has been getting smaller, but one that consumers today are, I think, silently retreating to. Skunkarpe has prioritised their adventure game roots, all the way back to LucasArts. They have remastered a collection of cult classics without care for commercial success or consumer appeal. They're joined by friends who are now scattered across the industry, but still come back to help them. Homestar Runner, even after the death of Flash, continues with all the charm and charmisma of its past. Penny Arcade continues to run a relevant and relatable strip, while the Expo continues to host a plethora of breakout developers. And all the while, Valve has continued to play a key role in the indie game ecosystem, almost unchanged in its business model, with a keen focus on full ownership. Indeed, still very slow to release anything themselves, but very open to anyone who wants to release something on their behalf, to which the inventory is no exception. The revival of the inventory is a representation of everything humble in the world of PC gaming, and its continued existence is a symbol of goodwill between game developers, designers, artists, and writers from IPs not sold to the highest bidder, instead held or reclaimed by those willing to share. And it's all bundled into a crossover effort which will only set you back a tenner. At the end of the day, what's not to love?
I hear the cold ones are pretty good here.
Aren't you like 10?
You, shut face. They also shake up some decent banang.
Stop it!
Nang.